I got a call to remove a colony of bees from this backyard compost bin, and here's how I did it. First, I started to carefully remove the comb structure of the hive. I fit the pieces of comb that had baby bees and the bees' food into wooden frames. Next, it was time to start scooping bees into the new hive. I always wear protective equipment when I need to, but since I work with bees almost every day, I've learned to read their behavior and could tell that these bees, like most honeybees, were very gentle and would not try to sting me. So I kept removing comb and removing bees from the bin, all while looking for the queen bee. After I removed most of the bees, I saw the queen crawling up the side of the bin, so I put her in a clip to keep her safe. She's the largest bee in the colony, which makes her a little easier to find. There she is. I put the queen in the new hive and all the other bees started to follow her in. I had to get a bigger hive because there were so many bees, but after most of them went in the hive, I closed it up and carried it back to my truck, and it was another great day of saving the bees. This bee was outside the hive on a cold winter day. She wasn't moving, so I picked her up and I put her in my hands. I gave her a few breaths of warm air, and I waited as the heat from my breath and from my hands warmed her body. Honeybees survive the winter by clustering together inside the hive to keep themselves and their queen warm. But when a bee gets too cold like this one did, they become paralyzed and they enter a sort of chill coma. During this state, they lower their body temperature and metabolic rate to survive the cold without food. If a bee stays too cold or in this state of paralysis for too long, it can die. But if the bee is able to warm up like this one did, movement will slowly start to return to its body and it can survive. Once this bee was able to walk, I put her back where I found her, and she returned to the warmth and safety of her colony. In honor of World Bee Day and Guerlain's $1 million commitment to bee conservation, here are a handful of my favorite facts about honeybees. Did you know that you've probably never seen a male honeybee before? That's because over 90% of a colony's population is female. Female bees are called worker bees for a reason. They do all the work for the hive. They collect food for the colony, they build the hive, they raise the baby bees, and they take care of the queen bee. The UN has designated May 20th as World Bee Day, but you can join me and companies like Guerlain who give back to bees every day. Guerlain has committed $1 million to protecting bees. They've also established a program called Women for Bees to teach 50 women from around the world how to keep bees and start their own beekeeping business like I did. When you support brands like Guerlain, you are supporting bees and beekeepers around the world. And now, more than ever, bees need our help. Bees were living in these drawers and I was called to give them a new home, so I started to carefully remove each piece of their hive. These bees had worked hard to build all of this comb, so whatever I took out of the drawers, I put into a new hive for the bees. Then it was time to get the bees into the new hive, so I just shook the bees out of the drawer and into their new home. But these drawers were full of more bees than I expected, so I just kept shaking drawer after drawer of bees into the new hive, and after all of the drawers were empty, I started scooping bees up with my hands. These bees did not feel threatened by me, so they were not trying to sting me at all. And after I had scooped most of the bees into the new hive, I found the queen. So I put her in a clip and I put her in the new hive. Then I gave the rest of the bees some smoke, and they all started running after their queen, and the entire colony moved into the new hive, and it was another great day of saving the bees. Bees were living in this water meter box and I was called to remove them. So I lifted the lid and I found a beautiful hive full of very nice bees. I gave the bees some smoke and I started to remove the hive. Whatever I removed from the water meter box went right into the new hive for the bees. Then I started scooping bees into the new hive while searching for the queen. Bees are one of the most important species on Earth, and it's my job to do everything I can to help them. So I took a piece of comb and I made a little bee bridge for them to get into their new hive, but I still needed to find the queen. So I stopped scooping to take a closer look, and I saw the queen on the side of the box. So I put her in a clip and I put her in the new hive. As soon as the queen was in the new hive, the bees started running after her. I waited for the colony to move into the new hive, then I closed the lid, I waited some more, then I took the bees home, and it was another great day of saving the bees. Bees were living in this compost bin and I was called to remove them. The bin was full of comb and bees, so I got to work removing the hive. The first pieces of comb I removed were full of honey, so I took a bite and I saved the rest for the bees. Then I just kept removing piece after piece of comb out of the bin while searching for the queen. These bees had worked so hard to build this hive, and I wanted to do everything I could to preserve it for them. So I put the pieces of comb into frames and I put them in the new hive. After I had removed all of the comb, it was time to get the bees in the new hive, so I started scooping them up with my hands. Since there were a lot of bees on this side of the bin, I thought there was a good chance the queen would be there too, and after a few minutes of searching, I found her. So I put her in a clip to keep her safe, and I put her in the new hive. Then I just kept scooping bees into the new hive. These bees were very calm and they were not trying to sting me, and we were all working together for the good of the colony. But there were still a lot of bees flying around, and there were a lot of bees on me too. So I used my smoker to encourage the bees to go into their new hive. I waited as long as I could for the bees to get into their new hive, then I closed up the hive, and it was another great day of saving the bees. In the winter, bees survive off the food that they collected and stored in their hive earlier in the year, but sometimes they don't have as much food as they need, so I have to feed the bees to help them survive until spring. This powder is a substitute for the natural pollen that bees collect when flowering plants are in bloom. If you want to help bees, you can plant flowers, bushes, and trees that will provide food for bees, and together we can make every day another great day of saving the bees. Working with bees has changed my life in so many ways, but more than anything else, it's made me understand just how important the choices that we make are to the creatures that we share this planet with. That's why I try to support brands who believe in sustainability and helping our environment as much as I do. And one of my favorite sustainable beauty brands to support is Guerlain. I've seen firsthand how Guerlain is making positive environmental impacts. They're redesigning their packaging to offer options for refilling and recycling, and they're reformulating some of their most popular products like their Abbé Royale to have even more natural ingredients. It's been such a privilege to work with Guerlain, and I hope that more companies will make meaningful commitments to our environment like Guerlain has made, so that every day will be another great day of saving the bees. This is an undertaker bee, and it's her job to haul dead bee bodies out of the hive. This is just one of the many important jobs that every female worker bee does throughout her life for the survival of the colony and of the species. Bees had been living in this backyard shed for many years. The shed was going to be torn down, but the homeowners wanted to save the bees, so they called me. Behind the wall of the shed, I found a huge hive of very gentle bees, so I removed my veil and I began removing the hive. The first part of the hive that I removed was full of honey, so I took a bite out of the honeycomb and it was so good. Then I started to carefully remove the rest of the hive. These huge pieces of comb were full of baby bees and also a lot of beautiful pollen that the bees use for food. Whatever I removed from the original hive went right into the new hive so that the bees would have everything they needed to survive. I put the pieces of comb into frames using rubber bands to keep it in place. Then I just kept removing the hive piece by piece while looking for the queen. After I removed all of the comb, I started scooping bees into the new hive. Then all of a sudden, I saw the queen on the side of the shed. So I put her in a clip to keep her safe, and I put her in the new hive. And pretty soon the entire colony was running into the new hive to be with their queen. It was getting dark and the bees needed more time to move in, so I left the hive overnight. When I returned the next morning, there were still some bees at the top of the shed, so I gave them some smoke and they began running into the new hive. Then I closed up the hive, I took them home, and it was another great day of saving the bees.